What if I told you that Leonardo da Vinci's true genius wasn't just art and invention, but a secret playbook for building lasting wealth and power? We all know him for this, the Mona Lisa, or the Last Supper. We think of him as an artist, a dreamer, a man who sketched flying machines centuries before they were possible. But that's not the whole story. Not even close. The popular image of a solitary genius, lost in his work, is mostly a romantic fantasy. The reality is far more strategic and way more lucrative. Welcome to History's Wealth Playbook. Today, we're not just looking at the painter, we're decoding the master strategist. We're going to uncover the financial playbook that turned a social outcast into a global icon. And this isn't just a dusty history lesson. It's a guide to innovation, influence, and income that is as relevant today as it was 500 years ago. By the end of this video, you'll understand the specific strategies Leonardo used to monetize his genius, turning his boundless curiosity into a formidable fortune. These are the lessons that built his empire, and they are principles you can apply to your own chase for success and a legacy that lasts. Section 1. The Underdog Advantage. To get the sheer scale of his success, you first have to understand the depth of his struggle. Leonardo was born in 1452, the illegitimate son of a respected legal official and a peasant girl. In the rigid world of 15th century Italy, this was a serious handicap. Being born out of wedlock meant he was barred from going to university and from joining his father's respectable profession. He had no formal education in the classics, Latin, or advanced math. By all accounts, he was an outsider with a very questionable future. While his paternal family was moderately prosperous and owned some land, they weren't the ruling elite. It was his father, Ser Piero, who pulled some strings to get him an apprenticeship in the workshop of Andrea del Verrocchio, one of Florence's top artists. This was his one shot. In the bustling, competitive world of Renaissance Florence, Leonardo was just another apprentice learning to mix paint. He had no huge inheritance to coast on and no powerful family name to open every door. Everything he would achieve, he had to build himself. But this challenging start, this problem of his birth, actually became his greatest asset. It forced him to be different. Since he couldn't rely on traditional paths to success, he had to invent his own. It bred in him a fierce self-reliance and an observational skill that was second to none. He couldn't read the great classical books, so he decided to read the book of nature instead. He studied the flight of birds, the flow of water, and the anatomy of the human body, not because a professor told him to, but because his survival depended on seeing the world as it truly was, and finding opportunities nobody else could. His underdog status wasn't a barrier, it was the foundation of his entire financial playbook. Section 2, Secret Number 1. Sell the solution, not the art. In 1482, at 30 years old, Leonardo made a huge career move. He left Florence, the heart of the art world, and aimed for Milan. His target? Ludovico Sforza, the powerful and ambitious Duke of Milan. So, how does a pretty good artist get the attention of a ruthless ruler obsessed with military power? You don't send him pretty pictures. You send him a resume that solves his biggest problems. Leonardo wrote what might be the most brilliant job application letter in history. In it, he laid out his value in 10 strategic points. The first 9 were a masterclass in marketing himself as a military engineer. He wrote, "I have plans for very light, strong, and easily portable bridges. And I know how to remove water from moats." He promised he could design covered vehicles, safe and unassailable, basically, the world's first tank that could smash through enemy lines. He detailed his know-how for creating new types of cannons and mortars that could fling small stones almost resembling a storm. He wasn't selling himself as a dreamer, he was selling himself as a weapon. Only after 9 paragraphs detailing his destructive power, in the 10th and final point, did he casually mention his artistic skills. He adds, almost as an afterthought, "In time of peace I believe I can give as complete satisfaction as any other in the field of architecture, also I can execute sculpture, and also painting." He even dangled the idea of a massive equestrian statue to honor the Duke's father, a brilliant appeal to Ludovico's ego. This was a stroke of genius. Leonardo knew his audience. The Duke of Milan was surrounded by enemies and obsessed with new military tech. Leonardo didn't sell what he wanted to make, he sold what the Duke needed to buy. He found his patron's most urgent pain points, war, defense, and legacy, and made himself the essential solution. And the result? He got the job. He spent the next 17 years at the Milanese court, which gave him a steady and very large income. His salary was reportedly as high as 2,000 ducats a year. While it's hard to make a perfect modern conversion, that sum could be worth anywhere from 1.7 to 3.3 million euros annually today. This stable income wasn't just for painting, it was for his mind. It gave him the financial freedom to chase his countless other passions, from anatomy to optics to engineering. The lesson is timeless. Wealth doesn't come from just peddling your craft, it comes from solving valuable problems. Leonardo's first secret was understanding his clients' needs so deeply that he became a necessity, not a luxury. He sold the solution, and the art came as a bonus. Section 3. Secret number 2. The power of the polymath and diversified income. Once he was in, Leonardo put his second secret into action: radical diversification. Being the ultimate Renaissance man wasn't just about intellectual curiosity, it was a brilliant financial strategy. He never, ever relied on a single source of income. We remember him for a handful of paintings, but art was just one stream in his river of revenue. Think of him as a one-man conglomerate. His notebooks, thousands of pages of sketches, prove it. These weren't just hobbies, they were all potential business ventures. In Milan, his title was court artist and engineer, but his real job was genius on demand. He designed weapons and fortifications just as he'd promised. He was a civil engineer, consulting on Milan's cathedral and designing complex canal systems for the city. He was also a world-class event planner. For the Sforza court, he produced spectacular festivals and theatrical shows with mind-bending stage machinery, all designed to entertain the Duke and project his power. This was big business, and it paid very well. He dissected bodies to understand anatomy, which didn't just satisfy his curiosity, it made his art radically realistic and far more valuable. His study of light and optics led to the famous sfumato technique that gives his paintings that dreamy quality. Each field of study fed the others. Anatomy made his painting better. Engineering helped his architecture. This cross-pollination of ideas gave him a unique value that no single specialist rival could ever hope to match. Now, let's be clear, historians will tell you Leonardo was often a terrible businessman. He was notorious for missing deadlines and leaving frustrated patrons in his wake because he was more driven by curiosity than by contracts. But his incredible range of skills made him too valuable to ignore. He took on students who paid him an apprenticeship fee. He even secured the rights to draw water from Milan's St. Christopher Canal, which provided a small but steady side income. This wasn't a man with a job, this was an entrepreneur with a portfolio. So when French forces invaded Milan in 1499 and his patron was overthrown, Leonardo didn't go bankrupt. His diverse skill set made him an instant hot commodity. He found work in Venice as a military architect, then with the ruthless Cesare Borgia, not as a painter, but as a top military engineer and mapmaker. His ability to pivot from art to war made him resilient and always in demand. This idea of diversifying and building a portfolio of skills is more important today than ever. If you're finding these lessons from history's ultimate innovator valuable, and you want more wealth playbooks from the past, do me a favor and hit that like button and subscribe to my channel History's Wealth Playbook. We have so many more secrets to uncover. Section 4, Secret number 3, the Patronage Playbook, Securing High-Value Clients. Leonardo's third and final secret was his mastery of what we'd now call high-ticket client acquisition. He didn't just look for any job. He strategically hunted down and built relationships with the richest and most powerful people of his time. He knew the right patron didn't just offer money, they offered freedom, resources, and protection. His career path is basically a map of Renaissance power centers. He started in Florence, trying to win over the Medici family, the great banking dynasty who funded the early Renaissance. Then came his big break with Ludovico Sforza in Milan. That relationship became his template. He secured a huge retainer that wasn't tied to finishing any single painting, which gave him the freedom to experiment and study. Patrons like Sforza knew that to get the most out of a genius like Leonardo, you had to let him run. After Milan, he worked for Cesare Borgia, son of Pope Alexander VI and arguably the most dangerous man in Italy. This shows Leonardo's pragmatism. He'd lend his talents to a warlord in exchange for security and a chance to use his engineering skills in the real world. But his ultimate patron was King Francis I of France. By the time he was in his later years, Leonardo was a living legend, but his painting output had slowed down. In Italy, new stars like Michelangelo and Raphael were on the rise. So, Leonardo accepted the king's invitation to move to France. Francis I wasn't just hiring an artist, he was acquiring a cultural icon. He gave Leonardo the title First Painter, Engineer, and Architect to the king, a generous salary, and a beautiful manor house, the Château du Clos-Luce. Crucially, the king didn't ask for specific paintings. He wanted Leonardo for his mind, for his conversation, for the sheer prestige of having the world's greatest genius at his court. This was the ultimate endgame. Leonardo had built his personal brand so powerfully that his final patron paid him simply to be. He was no longer trading time for money, he was being paid for his accumulated wisdom. And he famously didn't compromise his work to please people. He was known for not finishing projects, including the Mona Lisa, which he was commissioned to paint but kept with him for years, tinkering with it endlessly. He didn't let the client dictate his vision. He found clients whose ambitions were big enough to match his own, creating a partnership, not just a job. His strategy was clear: target the 1% who could afford his genius and had problems big enough to need it. Conclusion: the Da Vinci Code for modern wealth. So, what was Leonardo's secret to wealth and innovation? It wasn't one thing. It was a playbook, and it's shockingly modern. First, he sold the solution, not the skill. He knew that real value comes from solving someone's biggest, most expensive problem. Marketing himself as a military engineer was his way in the door. Second, he built a diverse portfolio of skills and income. He was a polymath who used his knowledge across different fields to create a competitive advantage that made him irreplaceable and resilient. And third, he mastered the art of patronage. He targeted high-value clients who gave him not just money, but the freedom to do his life's work. He built a personal brand so strong that a king eventually paid him for his wisdom alone. So, was he a perfect, calculating businessman? Absolutely not. Historians agree that his insatiable curiosity was often his own worst enemy, leading him down scientific rabbit holes while paid work was left unfinished. But he was a master strategist in a different sense. He engineered his life to buy the one thing that mattered most to him: the freedom to learn. Leonardo's life shows us that wealth isn't just about money, it's about financing your freedom. As he wrote, "Time abides long enough for those who make use of it." His entire financial playbook was designed to do just that. His legacy is a powerful testament to curiosity, strategic planning, and building a brand on pure excellence. He wasn't just a genius who happened to make money. He was a genius who designed a life that allowed him to be a genius. What can we learn from this? Diversify your skills. Solve real problems. Build relationships with people who can elevate you. And never, ever stop learning. That is the true Da Vinci Code. And that is the lesson from History's Wealth Playbook. Next time, we're digging into the secret financial tactics of the Roman Empire's richest men and how they built fortunes that rival today's billionaires. If you enjoyed this fresh look at Da Vinci's genius, make sure you don't miss our next video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with someone who loves history, innovation, and wealth. Thanks for watching.